Well, yeah, okay. If we go back to that, that most fundamental principle of mindset we just talked about, if you do what is hard, your life will be easy, right? But if you do what is easy, your life's going to be hard. I mean, that's inevitable, and that's pretty much the most fundamental mindset principle. Anything to do with mindset, peak performance, if you want your life to go in the direction that you want it to go, then you really do have to take that to heart. And it's kind of tough because people hear this. If you do what is hard, your life is easy. If you do what is easy, your life's going to be hard. And we have a tendency in our culture to skim over things and be very superficial. But the more you think about this, the more you apply it, the deeper you realize it is. It's incredible. It's incredible what this does. Now, okay? What do we mean by do what is hard? Okay, well, getting out of bed is hard. Making your bed is hard. Going to the gym is hard. Um, Doing your work is hard. Um, Making dinner for the kids is hard. Whatever it is, right? So all of these things that we have to do in life, yeah, they can be classed as hard because you might rather sit on the couch and drink beer and eat chips. Okay, and this goes to the delusion of people who say, "Oh, I don't want to push myself. I want to go with the flow. I just want to go with the flow." Okay, yeah, great. And that, by the way, going with the flow is a wonderful thing if it's legitimate. But that kind of going with the flow is not legitimate because it is not the flow. It is falling into your comfort zone, and there's a huge, huge difference. Like, look at it this way: every ancient mystical tradition worth anything was aiming to get into the flow of the universe, was aiming to become flowing, aiming for a life that is truly natural. And you know what all of those traditions had in common? Their aspirants, the people who got into those traditions, they trained really hard, physically hard, tremendously hard. These are people who would, go into meditation retreats for a month or 6 months at a time or more. These are people who got huge amounts of physical exercise. These are people who would be up at 4 in the morning doing their meditations, doing whatever it is that they use to train their minds. So, and I saw this. I saw this on, when I was functioning as a priest in the Orthodox Church. I spent some time on Mount Athos in Greece, which is full of monasteries that are 1,000 years old. I found myself physically outclassed by people who were over 80. Okay, and I was in my 30s in good shape. So I was outclassed by these guys. I was getting, literally, they were running by me on mountain trails. Okay, and these are people, I couldn't keep up with their lifestyle. I just couldn't. They ate less than I did. They physically performed more than I did. They got less sleep than I needed. It was incredible. Okay, but that is, and that's very typical of all of these traditions. So, if someone says, well, I want to be a Taoist, for example. I want to follow the Tao, which is just going with the flow. Yeah, right. Okay, well, you're going to have to train really hard to do that. You do realize that all the Taoist masters, I have a bunch of the books over here. I'm sorry, these people trained ridiculously hard to find true flow, not the pseudo flow you're talking about, which is, your comfort zone. I don't mean you, but I mean, people who say this, I just want to go with flow. No, that isn't to say no that everybody's dream in life is the same. It's not. It's not. There are different kinds of, you can define your dream life any way you wish. But that does bring up another mistake, which is, and this could be a misinterpretation of this fundamental principle, doing what is hard. A lot of people think that it's all about just changing your actions, right? I'll just change my actions. I'll do something different. Now, that could mean I'm just going to go to the gym every day, or it could mean much more than that. It could mean I'm just going to, in pursuing my dream, I'm going to change my actions, but I'm not going to pay attention to my mind, my thoughts. And that is a huge mistake. That's kind of going into what I call the yang side of mindset, as opposed to the yin side of mindset. Well, the yin side of mindset is tremendously important. In some ways, you can't say it's more so because the two do go together. For example, if we talk about the yin side of mindset, I have a lot of people who are in mindset, but they're in the manifesting space. They're talking about manifesting, reality creation, using your thoughts to create the life you want. And they make a lot of wonderful points because they're bang on, to be honest. Uh, there's an issue there, but we'll get to that in a minute. But they're absolutely right. You have to feel good. You need to pursue thoughts that are what physics would call high vibration. So, thoughts that on an emotional scale make you feel good. You need to feel inspired about what you're doing. You need to feel you're being pulled forward by inspiration instead of trying to push and being overwhelmed by stuff to do. In order to do that, you have to retrain your mind. You have to retrain how you think about your life, how you think about yourself. You need to retrain this. And that's what, manifesting is wonderful about. These people really get into that and they do it really well. And that's why I talk about it too, because it's so important. When I first got into business, I was completely overwhelmed. Right? I think I've told you the story. I was completely overwhelmed. And I'd go for long walks in the neighborhood trying to figure out how to get out of this overwhelm, trying to use the brain to solve the problem the brain was creating, right? Because the brain was trying to keep me in my comfort zone, and I was doing something radically new, something I hadn't done before. And then, suddenly one day, for reasons I still don't understand, I was filled with an inspiration to go on one particular course of action, which ended up like setting up a giant sort of online conference kind of thing back in the day. And I was so inspired by this. I couldn't stop. It was wonderful while it lasted, right? My problem was after it finished, I didn't know how to recreate this. Not yet, because I didn't understand mindset training, that sort of retraining of thought and emotion. I didn't totally understand that or the principles behind it, not at that point. So, and this brings up the problem that I alluded to that manifesting people face. What is that problem? Well, that problem is that training the mind is really hard. I'm sorry, it is really hard in some ways. It's every bit as hard as training the physical. In fact, I would say in many cases more so. I find it easier to do my workouts than to do my mindset workout. I'd go to the gym 10 times before I push myself to the mindset training because it's hard to do. But the payoff is incredible. Incredible. In mindset or manifesting people will talk about what kind of thoughts do you want? Well, think of high frequency thoughts. Now, okay, that's a bit of an abstraction for most people. But think of it as thoughts that put you into internal alignment with the life that you want. And this does take a good deal of both imagination to do, but it also takes drills. It takes drills. And things like affirmations, for example, and people say, oh, affirmations, yeah, I tried those. They don't work. Yeah, you tried them. You probably dabbled, which is what most people do with everything. They dabble. They do not apply. So to apply something means to do it consistently and relentlessly. So if you were to construct affirmations about the life that you want and how you think about that life, if you were to do that properly and drill those for a month, you would see unbelievable progress. But people don't do that. People dabble. Yeah, I know. Well, the problem of, that is the problem of focusing only on manifesting. And yeah, that's why I don't only focus on that. That's why when I talk about human resilience, I feel it's imperative to talk about the yang side of mindset, the peak performance side. Yes, you need to know what to do. You need to know the tactics to get out of overwhelm. You need to know that you need to push yourself physically too. Yes, you need to know that because of its impact primarily, yes, on your self-image. You need to understand mind-body integration because the huge problem for us in the West is we're in our heads. We've got to get back into the body, right? And, that's where, for me, the biggest tools there are Qigong and Tai Chi. Huge tools, or Qigong, then internal martial arts, whether it's Tai Chi, Bagua, Xingyi, but primarily Tai Chi for me. Um, but there are other methods of mind-body integration too. Yeah, yoga. Yeah, okay, yoga. Others, and all of this, of course, leads to spiritual connection. It leads to spiritual life. So we have to talk about that too, because spiritual connection is a huge performance boost in itself. So none of the facets of the human being can be isolated. When we try to do that, we really do shortchange ourselves. But that's our issue right now, right? That everybody, what do people look for online? They look for a solution to an immediate problem, or what they perceive to be the immediate problem, which is the symptom usually, and not the cause. I'm interested in people who want to reverse engineer that and go from the symptom to the cause, erase the cause, and remake their life from the ground up. And that's what I refer to as resilience, right? So, practical, one of the most practical things you can do, wherever you're at, is win the day up front. Because it really is possible to taste victory, to taste advancement, to taste change. And the most important thing to do is this, and it's dirt simple. It's win the day up front. What does that mean? It means do a few things as soon as you get up in the morning. And that way, within an hour or 2 hours or at most of getting up, you've done incredible things. Then you feel wonderful. You've got the rest of the day ahead of you, the rest of the morning and the afternoon and the evening. You've got all that. So yeah, work out early. Do a workout early so you feel really good about yourself and you know you've exercised your body. You've got the blood flowing. You've stretched out your muscles, tendons, ligaments, and all of that. Do your mindset training early so you know you've got your mind on your side. Right? Do that early. How long is all this going to take? You could work out for 10, maybe 15 minutes. You can do your mind training in 10 or 15 minutes. And then move on to accomplish one goal right away. It can be a small goal. It doesn't matter what it is. One thing on your to-do list that you can do in a reasonable time frame, like maybe something you could do in maybe 30 minutes, right? Just throwing that out there. You could do all this, as I said, in 90 minutes of getting up. It's unbelievable what you can accomplish. Unbelievable. So, that's really it. And all this goes back to, if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. Well, okay, doing this is going to feel hard at the beginning, right? Get up early, do this, bang. No discussion, no debate, don't care about how I feel, I'm doing this. And yeah, that's going to be hard because everything new is hard until it becomes a habit, right? And then it becomes the new normal. And that's what you want. You need a new normal. We all need a new normal. And no matter where we're at, we're always going for, those of us who care about this stuff, we're always going for a better new normal. So, that's really it.